Okay, so here we're going to run through kind of 20 pieces of the most common lab equipment that you're going to see in this course. Um, in class, when we do this, we would normally have the lab equipment out so that you could see it. So if you're watching this online because you're missing a class or because you're not able to be in class for this lesson in person, you're going to want to make sure that you take a look at some of this lab equipment just to kind of get a pretty good sense of kind of what each of these things is. Because the diagrams are good, but seeing them in person is better. Okay? So the first thing, number one, this is a beaker. Okay, it's made of Pyrex, which is a very heat resistant glass, and the graduations, which are these lines right here, these are approximate indications. Okay, this is not an accurate tool for measuring liquids, but it is a measuring tool nonetheless. It's just not accurate. It's approximate. Okay. Number two, these are a type of tong. Okay, and they have these lobster claw ends that are used to grasp wide diameter glassware. So we call these beaker tongs because they're very useful for grabbing beakers. Number three, this is a type of glassware. It has a wide base, which makes it more stable. Its graduations, just like the beaker, are approximate. This is what we call an Erlenmeyer flask. So just make note of the spelling of Erlenmeyer. It's Erlenmeyer. We try and make sure that we're at least attempting to spell as accurately as possible. This is Erlenmeyer, and that's different than this flask number 4. This is mainly used, it's made to hold hot gases. Its graduations, if it has them, are approximate. This is a different kind of flask. We call this the Florence flask. Okay. These tongs have basically, sometimes they're called hot dog tongs because they're the type of tongs that you'd use to pick up hot dogs. We aren't in this course going to use them for that purpose. These would be used to pick up narrow diameter glassware, and so these we would refer to as test tube tongs because the test tubes are quite narrow. Coming down here to number 6, this is a little cup with a lid, and it's made of porcelain or ceramic materials, and this is used for intense long periods of heating. So if you need to heat something for a long time, you would put it inside of this little ceramic dish. This is called a crucible. On to number 7. These tongs have pincer ends, so they have these narrow ends here, and they grasp the narrow edges of a crucible, and for that reason, these are of course called crucible tongs. Number 8, you've seen these before. These are test tubes. There's small varieties which are about 10 milliliters. There's larger ones which are about 40 milliliters. We will use both of these, but these are test tubes. We'll use both sizes in this class. Number 9, this kind of, number 9 and number 10 go together. Number 9 is what we call wire gauze. It's a wire square with kind of a heat-resistant material in the middle, this kind of circle, that takes a flame or the flame of a Bunsen burner and spreads out the heat nice and evenly over this surface. The wire gauze is placed on top of number 10, which is a ring clamp, which clamps to a retort stand. Okay, so this is used to support an apparatus such as a wire gauze. So number 9 is wire gauze, number 10 is ring clamp. It's really important. This is why it's good when we're in class and we do this, you can kind of see how all these things fit together. Number 11 is what some people would call a balance. This is an electronic version of a balance. Okay, we don't usually call them a scale, although that is what they are. They're a very accurate means of measuring mass. Okay, be sure to make note that an electric balance does not measure weight. Okay, weight is a force, it's measured in newtons. Mass is the amount of material in a substance. Typically, it's measured in metric units, grams. Okay, that's an electronic balance. Number 12, this is a can, a cylinder, with a little spigot or a spout. And we call this an overflow can. And the reason why it has this spout is because we can fill it with a liquid to the point where it's just at the level of this spout, and then we can drop an object into the can, and we can use it, whatever volume of water comes out of the can, we can use to find the volume of whatever we put in. So we say that we use it to measure the volume of an irregularly shaped object. You will get an opportunity this unit to use this in class. This apparatus right here is what we call a Bunsen burner. We have an air intake and we have a gas valve. This spigot here connects up to the gas that comes out of our lab benches. The hottest point typically is about 1500 degrees Celsius, and the fuel that the ones that we have at our school use is natural gas. So number 13 is a Bunsen burner. Number 14 is basically, it looks like this, and of course this is what the object looks like. This is a zoomed in version of the graduations. This is used to very accurately measure a liquid or another a pourable solid, but typically it's used to measure a liquid, and this is what we call a graduated cylinder. Now, we had said earlier with the beaker that the lines on the beaker, the graduations on the beaker, or on the Erlenmeyer flask were all approximate. This is the device that we would use to measure accurately, and we will use these quite a bit. Number 15 is a retort stand, and a retort stand is used as kind of a base to set up a ring clamp, a wire gauze, and even a Bunsen burner, so that all the pieces kind of go together in a little stand, and we kind of can set up a whole bunch of different objects. So that's a retort stand. We'll see how these pieces fit together in class. Number 16 is a gas lighter. There's a piece of flint in here, and this metal strikes against the piece of flint, and of course that will give us sparks, which will be used to light the Bunsen burner. So that's a gas lighter. Number 17, these are rubber stoppers. They're useful to put into test tubes and into flasks. Number 18 is a thermometer. Of course, you know this. At school, we use the liquid that's in the thermometer is alcohol with some red dye. We no longer use mercury in thermometers at school because mercury is a toxic substance. Although if you have a thermometer at home, which you use to measure your temperature, if you have a fever, it may still have the silver in it. Number 19 is a dish with kind of a pulverizer. It's like a dish with a rod. This is called a mortar and pestle. The mortar is the bowl, the pestle is the piece of ceramic here, and we would use this to crush a sample. So if we had something solid, we would put it in the mortar and we would crush it using the pestle. Number 20 is used to scoop out any samples. So it's both a scoop and it can also be used to spread. So it can also be a spatula. It's made of metal, and so a scoop and a spatula, we call this a scoopula. And that is a list of the equipment that we're going to use most often in this course.